Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Good evening, Source Nation. I am your host, Tem'Ti Sahu, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Renaissance Relationship Therapy, the show that gives you the relationship view you never knew, and it's a view that has the power to change everything. Source Nation, before you can have any relationship with anyone else, you have to have your own value with yourself, understand your own identity, know what you're about, know what you have to give. So, today's show, we have a cracker for you. The perfect relationship. It begins long before you've met that special someone. In fact, before you can find that perfect someone, you have to feel that you are just prepared to find him or her. You've got to put the work in. So many people enter into relationships only to find that they're dating the wrong person, or even worse, they're dating the same person, the same personality that they just got rid of. And this often happens because we make pivotal mistakes when we are single and seeking a romantic relationship. Now, if you're looking for that perfect relationship, the one that makes you feel like a better person, the one that's going to challenge you to look at some of your shortcomings and bring out your best, then the first place you have to look for that special someone is, it is so common for both men and women to seek relationships that aren't good for them because they're just not sure of what they need. If you can't feel confident in who you are and in your singleness, then you're definitely not going to feel secure in a relationship with someone else. So today we're going to be discussing, this has all been broken down for you, we're going to be discussing the 12 distinctions of a relationship, the things that you need to get right within yourself to get right with somebody else. Now, this isn't your garden variety regular dating tips. These 12 distinctions are like a personal philosophy, a lifestyle, a state of mind that has been specifically written to help you prepare yourself to find that special someone. Remember, the better you feel about who you are, the better someone else is going to feel about you too. And joining us today in the studio to talk about the 12 distinctions of a relationship is the author of the 12 distinctions of a relationship. Her name, Sulonda Smith. And she's a practicing marriage and family therapist, psychotherapist, and counselor. She's been doing this for over 17 years. And her speciality is actually working with individuals who have compulsive, addictive behaviors with sex, providing services for issues such as depression, relationship challenges, family conflicts, and grief. Her 12 distinctions of a relationship are like the heart and soul of what we do on this show, but to like the 10th level. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's deep. It's profound, and it's honest, and these distinctions will work for you if you have the patience to do them, not just write them down, but to act on them. Sulonda Smith will be here very shortly to make it all very plain for us. But before I go any further, let me just quickly thank our sponsors who have made all this possible, and they are Scott Cares Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hits Masters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. Also, Source Nation, remember to tune in every other Monday. This is another great show. Every other Monday for Love Zone Mondays with Kathy B and co-host Dr. D. Yvonne Young as they speak with us about applying principles to strengthen and restore our relationships as we strive for longevity and success. Source Nation, I stated earlier, special guest for tonight's conversation is Sulonda Smith. We are going to be discussing the 12 distinctions of a relationship. And, if you've been without a partner for a long time, living a single life, then these single years can be an extraordinary time of growth for you. When you can come home to the center of yourself, connect more deeply with your own feelings, needs, and desires, discover your own authentic voice, and reflect upon the impact your beliefs and assumptions have had on your past relationships. And do this in a way that supports yourself to evolve your consciousness to a healthier place from which you can create your next relationship. You actually have the time and space right now, if you're single, to identify and release all the internal barriers that stop you from being in a loving partnership. You can prepare yourself to co-create a relationship that reflects the highest value or the highest possibility of a deeply nourishing, inspired, happy. So you're in a good place. And, there is some guidance for a lot of us that's needed to, special place when we're single. Because, a lot of times we may spend our time thinking, well, I'm lonely, I don't have anyone. And you don't have to be lonely. In fact, you're not. You're alone. Make it a choice, and make it a choice that is a good one. Now you have time to work on you. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Call in now, Source Nation, 619-924-0933. Press option 1 if you want to get involved in the conversation, if you have a question or you'd like to make a comment. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll be back with our special guest, Sulonda Smith, and she will be in the studio with us to discuss the 12 distinctions of a relationship. It's going to be a great one. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Source Radio Network is just one of the many platforms that is used to fulfill dreams of our listeners and create a purpose that will impact the lives of our communities, cities, and the world. It is often said that great things will happen when a group of driven people work together to accomplish one goal. We're giving people the opportunity to have a voice, translate words that haven't been heard, and paint pictures that no one has seen. Source Radio Network is fueling your life's purpose. How can you listen? www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio.
Are you burdened with unsatisfying emotional, spiritual, or mental relationships? Where and how do you start to fix everything? Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is the relationship you never knew. Join Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti every Sunday with special guests, including you, that will inspire, enlighten, change, and even surprise you on what you thought about your relationship. If you're ready to go there, then Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is already waiting. Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is the relationship you never knew, and the one that is going to change everything.
Letter of appreciation to you. This is my letter of appreciation to you. You gave me eyes to see my destiny, the world for me, and I wanted to thank you. So this is my letter of appreciation to you.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Source Nation, welcome back to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with me, your host, Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti. As I stated earlier, my special guest tonight is Sulonda Smith. She's in the studio with us to discuss the 12 distinctions of a relationship. And, you know, me and her have spoken. We've gone back and forth for a while, and it's interesting. One of the reasons she became a therapist was seeing family members going through emotional turmoil, but not getting the professional help and support that they needed. Since then, she has built on the importance of providing emotional and mental care. And what she may not have been able to do for her family as a child or as a younger one, she can now certainly do for all of us. And that's why she's here tonight, to continue the much-needed mental and emotional support that we all have to lean on at some point. She's here in the studio with us now. So, Source Nation, I bring to you Sulonda Smith. Hey, Sulonda, welcome to Renaissance Relationship Therapy. How are you doing today?
Hey, Tem'Ti, I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am doing fine. Welcome to the show. It's your first time here. It's great to have you, and I know we have a lot to get through today. Briefly, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm excited about our talk. I am a psychotherapist, have been one for 20 years, and I am also a coach, a dating and relationship coach. And I help people navigate the many different currents of relationships, from intimate ones with a committed partner, lifetime partner, husband, wife, to family, to work. I help fill in the gaps where there's lacking in understanding about what a relationship is for, because I find, even though it seems obvious, many people have questions about how do they react to certain things, or what's appropriate now or what isn't. In addition to knowing how to communicate, what to say, what not to say. And times have definitely changed over the last 30 years in terms of relationship. We can call it the modernization or whatever, but it's definitely changed.
Absolutely. It seems so much trickier now, so many choices to make, and we live much more individuated lifestyles. So we don't have the benefit of having family members, mentors, elders around us. So we're kind of lost. So it seems as if the coaches now have to step in and almost play an extended family role in supporting people. You wrote these distinctions, and this is a piece of work. I mean, it really is. And it just seems like something that everybody just needs to go to Kinko's and print up and put on their wall, because it's like a perfect guideline. Was there any kind of inspiration or story behind putting together these 12 distinctions?
Oh, yes. Well, you mentioned a little bit about myself earlier and seeing my family members go through troubles with relationship, but I also have my own story about not really understanding who I was in the world and what I was supposed to be doing and what my purposes were. And then also my relationship with my father wasn't as tight as it is today. And I realized because of that, I questioned my value for many years. And I had these dysfunctional relationships with men, sort of took me on a path of competing and wanting to be independent, and I can do everything better than you. And I didn't understand that there's a complementary space that we can hold with having a partner in our lives, and it doesn't have to be this competition. So that's the first reason why I wrote these 12 distinctions of relationship. And the second one is because I work with many couples in my practice and also individuals in coaching. I hear what the gap is, what they're missing, and what they're needing. And truth be told about it, people are kind of like, well, hey, I'm just going to do this relationship thing, and I'll see where it goes, and I'll kind of fly by the seat of my pants, so to speak,
right.
And hope stuff works out. But it really, truly is a strategy. So I put this together to help people be clear from the beginning of knowing who you are in the world, how you're showing up, to the end, meaning if you decide to partner up with someone, how it can be a healthy partnership, and when to let go and walk away, and how to pull people in you want and keep those you don't away but still respect them. So that's why I did the 12 distinctions of relationships.
That's marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. Okay, so we should look at the first one. Who am I? That seems like the starting point for everything. Know thyself, and the beginning is with you. So who am I? Explain to us why that is a distinction in a relationship.
Many people lose themselves in relationships. And I always have this saying about learning to love in a non-attached way, which might seem, undoable. But it's being on the scale of that if you love too much, you lose yourself. And if you love too little, you can lose someone else. But in the middle, if you know who you are, and that means being okay with learning how to handle heartbreak, for example, or discord, not falling apart when you don't get what you want, or feeling like you're not worthy or having value if somebody chooses to leave you, you still know who you are in the world, and you can get back out there and go after what you really want and what you can really have.
Absolutely. That seems to be very key when you see a lot of the people that, well, in fact, tell us, the effects of going on a rebound, breaking up with someone, because you're so used to having someone around. You might have been dating them for a few years. You break up, but you're like, man, I just can't stay at home. I got to call someone else, find someone else. What can be the negative effects of going through that kind of domino effect from person to person because you don't want to be alone? What usually happens in that respect?
Oh my goodness, people fall apart, and they fall apart slowly. But many people don't know they've fallen apart because it's been normalized to act as if everything is okay. As long as I show up and pretend like everything is okay, then I'm okay. And that's just not the truth. And that's that piece I was talking about, your value, right? When you know who you are, no, I'm good. I'm going to take a break for a while, but, it was good to meet you. Maybe I'll see you around in a couple of years.
Right.
Get yourself together. Start loving on you instead of chasing after everybody else to try to fill a void. Fill that void in yourself first. It's so important. That way you can attract someone instead of all these other ones that you've been attracting because you developed this pattern. You can attract somebody who can really be a wonderful reflection of the gifts, the talents, and all the other aspects that you have to share in a relationship.
Love it. Absolutely. The next one, number 2, control your emotions. Man, this right here. And you put new and old. Break it down, because there's so much in that, and I want to talk, but I'm not interviewing me. I'm interviewing you. So it's like, I want to hear what you have to say about this one, because that's something that, again, I've, old emotions getting in the way. I've seen it with other people. I've seen it with myself. So, tell us about these new and old emotions.
Okay, I'll start with the old emotions. Old emotions are wounds, pains that have never been healed, and they just don't originate from relationships with a man or a woman. They also come from relationships with our caregivers, rather our parents or our grandparents, aunts and uncles, or adoptive parents, whomever. Whatever you experienced or saw as an experience in that home that rattled you, right? It left you feeling disconnected, unloved, unworthy, invisible. You carry those things unless you had some type of healing modality, to help break that cycle. And healing modalities can be counseling, it can be spiritual work, it can be along any of those lines. But unless you had an opportunity to have that addressed and healed, you carry that into the next relationship. And because they've become survival mode, you don't recognize that they actually work against you.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And then these new emotions.
Yes, so the newer emotions are the ones that we have carried with us, usually in our young adult years, all the way into adults, and we accumulate with every relationship that we have where we feel that we're not honored, that we're not accepted, that we're looked over. And this could be from work. It can be at the grocery store checkout line. If the clerk didn't say hi to me, then it must be something wrong with me, or either the clerk got a problem, right? But there's this attitude. There has to be this distinction when it doesn't. It can just be something that happened. It was an experience. You got a lesson from it, and then you can move on. You don't have to carry the emotional piece with you with every person that you encounter. Now, I realize that there are people out there with some pretty deep scars and wounds around intimacy. And for that, I really say, let somebody help you. Stop keeping secrets and thinking that you got all this together. We all are human beings. We're supposed to have these experiences that many people are calling failures and mistakes. No, I don't call them failures and mistakes. I call them their experiences. I'm getting something from them so that I can add them to my life book, and I can use it in the next round or whatever it is that I'm going to do next, instead of making it I call it a big old bag. Right? You remember Erykah Badu's bag lady?
Big old bag, luggage, yeah.
Yeah, I carry this big old bag and then add stuff to it every time something doesn't go right, and then it weighs me down. And every time I try to get into a relationship, I'm so weighed down that I can't stand up for myself in the relationship, and I let somebody else run it.
You see, now the thing with emotions, like you said, we all have emotions. People are going to trigger them off. Like you said, these new emotions. It could be the clerk at the grocery store or somebody at work. But it seems like, right, emotions or reactions can be unpredictable. And when you have unpredictable things, then it seems to me that you have to have some kind of strategy in place as to, okay, what do I do? What's my contingency if something happens? How do I still maintain my course? And that seems to lead into number 3, knowing your intentions. If you have an intention, if you have a plan, then it can be easier to kind of deal with bumps in the road, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes, that's it. Just like we draft up a resume and we go seek a job, we should draft up a relationship plan when we plan to seek a man or a woman. What's your intention with these people that you're asking to be into your life? Do you want a long-term partnership? If you do, let them know at some point. Don't wait for them to give you some signals and let you know, and then you wasted a whole year. If you just want to be intimate, then let the person know. Companionship, let them know. It's okay. But we're so fearful of not getting what we really want that we'll take a small portion of it to hold us over, hoping that what we really want is coming 100%.
Okay, but then this is always the question. When do I let somebody know my intentions? When do I want to let them know, listen, I'm really looking at marriage, or I'm just looking at 5 years max, or I'm looking at 2 weeks, or I'm actually leaving in 5 minutes? When's the best time to let them know what point in the relationship? 3 months into the relationship, 6 months, the 6 month mark, or you just have to kind of like, okay. What's the I mean, all right, maybe there's no hard and fast rule, but surely there's a kind of ballpark region where it's like, okay, look, around 3 months, that's when you should like kind of state your intention. Is that how it can work for some people who have a hard time trying to figure out when is the right time to bring this kind of, question up?
Ooh, thank you for that, because the biggest piece about this is how you ask.
Okay.
It's not really about when, it's how. Yes, our tone, our way of questioning, the words we use can draw a lot from a person in maybe the first, second, or the third date.
Wow.
Listening to what they're saying and not saying gives you the big picture right away so that you're not wasting your time. For example, maybe it's the second date and we're having conversation. Maybe we met online, so let's create that scenario. We met online, but usually online both people are saying what they're after, but just in case they left that part out. Let's say I use a common trend, or maybe a couple that this is just one of these examples. I was really shocked when Beyonce and Jay-Z got married. I was like, wow, okay, all right, so they're kind of going the traditional route, so I was a little shocked by that. What do you think? Listen to the person's response. And they could say something like, yeah, I was kind of shocked too. I didn't know that, but that's cool. They got married. Marriage is the way to go. So you have an idea now to what that person is thinking about. And then you can say, well, for me, what I would like is to get married one day. And I'm not putting any pressure on you. I'm just saying, but that's like my goal, and but for you and I'm cool just having fun as we are for now, but that you should know that's my long-term goal. So right then and there, that person can make a decision if they want to keep hanging out with you because their goal is to get married too. And then you can make a decision if that person doesn't say the right thing for you to say, you know what, I enjoyed your company. We can just continue to be friends, but I'm letting you know that I'm dating other people because my goal is to find someone.
Right.
You can't be afraid of that.
Yeah. I mean, you said it so slick. You slipped it in there. You know, it doesn't sound scary, but when somebody turns around and be like, are we getting married? What are we doing? You're like, oh, my goodness. So it's the tone. It's not the time, it's tone. Okay, that's good. That's really good. I mean, I know it's still going to be something that some people need to work on, but I mean, how many times have I spoken in the mirror to myself, practicing how to speak to someone, or you know? So it's like practice. You know, there's no shame in it. You know, we all do it. So when we look at number 4, attract or detract, the science of flirting. So is this connected to the tone and how you say things to people and how you kind of feel them out? Like, I'm a little bit, clarify that one for me, the science of flirting.
Yes. There are different types, of course, that men and women do in order to attract a person. And some people, they have their own style, but there's definitely your common ways of attracting someone, which is looking at someone and putting them on notice that I'm checking you out and I've looked at you more than twice, you know, so you're going to give me a sign back by looking back at me and, you know, will you smile? So those are the common ones, right? But when it comes to flirting, the game has changed, right? Women are letting men know that they want an approach, or either women are approaching men. And there are some men that I hear, some say they want it old school. They want to be the chaser. They want to approach. And that if a woman approaches him, then he's not interested at all. And then there are some that say they don't mind. You know, they like to be known that they're, you know, looking good and that somebody wants them, so they're open. So it's definitely each person's choice. It has to be where you're not in it to conquer or attract on that day or that moment. Because just in case they're not interested, you have to be able to take it with a grain of salt, so to speak, and let it go. It doesn't define who you are, whether that person bites or not. You can be too forceful with someone and turn them off and turn them away. But then the mind is going, but if I don't approach, they'll never know I'm interested. You can't control that person. You can't do so much or so little. It's really up to that person if they're attracted to you or not.
You know, this is kind of interesting. I've had situations where there's people that I've looked at and never thought that there was much to look at. You know, I can hands down say I was not attracted to them. But when they opened their mouth and I spoke to them, it's like, wow, oh my goodness. And they start looking different. You know, the thing that you thought, no, that's not cool about them. You're like, no, that's actually quite hot. You know, because now there's a different kind of connection going on, and vice versa. There's people like, oh my goodness, look at her. But then she opens her mouth and she's talking about stuff that is just like so uninteresting. You're like, next, you know. So when it comes to flirting, how important is the environment, like where you go to do it? You know, if you go to a place where there's people of similar mindsets, you know, versus going to a place where it's like a feeding frenzy, like a club or something, you know, how much of an impact does that make? And should we take these things into account when we're looking for people?
Ooh, that's a really good question, because it's different strokes for different folks. And I have been told that you can find someone in the least likely place. Like if you don't go to clubs often, but your friends are asking you to come out for once and you finally do, and then you meet somebody who happened to be there under the same pretenses because their friends asked them out, then there's a match. However, if you keep having the same relationships or meeting the same guys or women or men or women in the same places, then it's time to switch it up. You have to consider other places. And some of those places could be in things that you enjoy, like Meetup is hot. And it supplies all types of experiences for you, from hiking to wine and cheese tasting to et cetera. Do some of those things because that's what you enjoy. That's who you are. And to find somebody who enjoys doing those things too would be great. But it'll get you out of this space where you keep attracting these people who you don't want or detracting. So
Right,
it's dealing
right.
with, right? Yeah, it's like you attract these people that seem like they're okay in the beginning, but then it always turns out the same in the end. So it's real good in the beginning, and then it sours at the end. Or you're attracting or detracting the people that you really want to be with because you're coming on too strong, or you don't have the appropriate language, or something's not connecting. But get outside of your comfort zone. Do something different to find someone if that's what you're interested in, if you're looking for a long-time partnership.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely believe it does take a little bit of, invention, imagination. And this is the whole thing of like just having fun being single, doing different things. Like you said, things outside of your comfort zone, exciting things, and just have fun with it, and don't necessarily, I guess, burden yourself with like, I have to find someone. Well, even if you don't find someone, you still had a great time, and just take that pressure off. That's how I've always looked at it. But I like this one, number 5, being honest. The first meeting, curiosity and infatuation. It's kind of funny that we always ask for honesty. But in truth, sometimes, some people can be too honest and tell you too much. So honesty is you've got to put like a measure on it, so to speak. But tell us about honesty.
Okay. Yes. Now, be honest with me. Are you married?
Okay, yes.
So that's what I thought of when you said
we need that. We need that one has to be answered. That one has to be answered correctly.
But it looks like you had a wedding ring on. Oh, no, baby, that was just, I had a little space there and I laid out in the sun. So.
Right.
So, you got kids? No, I haven't had any kids, and she's like, hold on, I got to go to the restroom, and she on the phone checking on her children, right? So this piece about being honest really it goes back to being clear with what you want in a relationship first off. I usually do these 4 tenets with people who work with me in relationship, and I ask them to map out what they want. And it's more strategic, of course, but I ask them to map out what they want. And then we go into the things that they think they can't have that they leave off the list. Every person, majority should I say, who has completed this list finds that they leave things off because their subconscious mind leads them to believe they can't have it or they don't deserve it. So being honest is with yourself first. And then when you're out there in the world and you are dating and you come across someone and you meet them and your emotions are all over the place and you're like, ooh, this person, yes, you go back to your list. When you start having the conversation and you're checking off that mental note, and you're looking for certain things, if that person doesn't meet the criteria of your list, like even if you say, okay, the person at least has to be 70% of my stuff, 30 I'm not really, upset about. That person isn't fitting your criteria. Make them a friend or an acquaintance, or just say it was nice meeting you. Because that curiosity, sometimes people turn into, I'm in love. I met her tonight, or I met him tonight. And it's not. There is an energetic vibration that happens between people, and that it seems like that they either know them or they've known them before. And that might be true, but we're not talking about past lives or anything right now, so I'm going to keep it just in relationship. So we can mistake that for, yes, this is the one. But it could just be that you share an energy with this person and that they beam, they're light, they feel good, they've got all these things for you. And another thing is, if you're a person that's lacking in your own light and you step into somebody else's, it feels good. It doesn't mean you need to be with them. It just means you need to take your light spectrum up a few more notches.
Yeah, I love how you put that, infatuation with true chemistry. People will talk about, I guess there is a type of chemistry going on, but it's more so just like the sexual chemistry. And if you haven't been around someone of the opposite sex for a while, yeah, you may have a void and they come with their testosterone, or you sniff out their estrogen and you're getting all excited. But all that's telling us is that, well, physically, you got a little connection, but now start asking the real questions and see if you also connect mentally, emotionally, spiritually, And a lot of people just will stop at the at the sexual connectivity level and think, you know, oh my God, this is it. This is true love because they're butterflies, and it absolutely isn't the full package of love. It's just stage one, and a very short-lived stage at that. You know?
Yes, absolutely.
It's so I definitely like the way you put that. That one is so loaded, and it's almost like you said, being honest with people about what you want and the kind of quick answers you want back from them, and then like I said, being honest with yourself about, okay, what am I really feeling here? What am I really feeling? Do I really think this person is God's gift, or am I just horny, or am I just lonely, or am I just projecting something onto them? You know, and I know it just seems like, you know, you're in a club and, you know, you're not trying to get philosophical at that point with the world, but you've got to ask yourself these questions, it seems, you know, as boring as it is. These are the kind of questions, like you said earlier, stop you wasting a year of your life, because you're going to ask them anyway. You know, when you're trying to figure out how to get away from the person, like, why did I get with them? What did I miss? You're going to get philosophical anyway, so save yourself the 12 months and do it at the beginning rather than later. That's what I tell folks. You know,
or 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it goes to the next point. You said ask questions. Choosing a compatible person. Have your questions ready. So this is like, right, I'm going to interview you. I want to see your relationship resume. You know, tell us about asking the questions and what kind of questions and how many questions.
Yes, absolutely. So the questions are in alignment with the list that you've made about what you really want in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, from what you have to give, what you want the person to be able to give, because this isn't just about having a partner, you know, for your life, because, you know, even on that trail, it can get old sometimes. You really have to work at staying together, right? Mm-hmm. So this is really about your growth and choosing someone to help you be the best human being you can be on the planet, reaching that potential that we all have. That's what this is really about. So when you're asking questions that could help you understand how that person would be in certain scenarios of your life. I travel for work, and I am gone 6 months out of the year. You know, is that something you can see yourself working with? Or another question would be, if you had a partner in your life, what would you want he or she to do? How would you want them to show up for you? Right? And that person might reply with, oh, I definitely need somebody to cook because I don't cook, or I want to have children, so I want to make sure that that person is there to help raise them with me. So this is why it's important to ask those types of questions. I love framing them in scenarios instead of just asking direct questions so that I can get a full understanding and picture. And then I get more information that way with just asking a straight-up question.
Mm. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the tone. Rather than asking questions and making someone feel like they're being in an interview, doing it in a certain way where, you know, you're a little smart about it and just have a discussion. Doesn't seem like any pressure. And like you said, you get everything you need and more. You'll hear it, you know, rather than being that person that's so antsy. Sulonda said I have to ask the questions. I'm going to ask the questions. Number one, I do this, you know. Yeah, I know that being nervous can wreck a whole lot of stuff, and people just really have to just be kind of just chill with it, you know. Easier said than done, but it will work out better if they do take the time out just to be relaxed and ask these things, I guess.
Yes, I like what you said earlier, which was when you're on dates, just go out to have fun first. Just go out just for the pure enjoyment that you get to go out and break your routine or your regimen of the other stuff that you do. And what I'll add on to that is don't fantasize about who this person could be in your life while you're out on the date, right? Especially for women. Don't fantasize about how she could possibly fit in. It's not about that. It's just you enjoying yourself in that moment. Because women will fantasize, you know, about who this person could possibly be. And men,
no, you already know guys will do it. Guys will do it hot to the 10th degree.
Yes, try her on, asking her questions, and then she's thinking, "Ooh, he's asking me if I want to take a trip to Bali. Ooh, that means he wants to be in a relationship with me." No, he's just asking you he's trying you on pretty much. So when that happens, for both men and women, just have the conversation and just enjoy the playfulness in it and the creativity in it. And that's it. So I love what you said earlier about just having fun.
Well, I actually have something else to ask, but let's try and move through the rest of these real quick. Becoming a couple, I really want to talk about that one. The relationship culture. I mean, that word culture. You know, sometimes people just think culture is banging the drum and you know, dancing in a circle. Culture is. I'm not even going to go into it. Just break it down for us. Relationship culture. What is relationship culture?
Absolutely. When you mutually begin a relationship with someone, right, when you become a couple, you are now creating your own set point of values together, i.e., do you want to celebrate the holidays and to what extent? Or do you not want to celebrate the holidays, to what extent? How often do you want to go visit each other's families? Are we going to sit down and have dinner at the table or in front of the TV? How often are we going to talk to each other about what's happening in our lives and how they're evolving around a house purchase, a car purchase, or children? You're creating a culture with each other that when people recognize the two of you, they know that the two of you are into dance and fine art. So they know that the two of you are into listening to people and trying to help them solve their problems within other couple relationships. And what happens is that all your stuff that you accumulated with your caregiver and so forth and so on, and all the stuff that makes you brilliant, you bring into that relationship. So now the two people have to figure out of all those four lists, right, because one person has a list of liabilities and assets, and then the other person has a list of liabilities and assets. And what I mean by liabilities is your junk. Do you smack on Cheerios? Do you yell? Do you withdraw, right? Do you get angry? And your assets is, are you great at balancing the books? Do you have mad cooking skills? You know, do you have a wonderful voice, right? So you want to be clear if the two can work together, and if you know you have problems with those areas, talk to each other about them so that you can support each other through them instead of looking for a reason to separate because they just don't work. They just don't mesh. That's when you're creating your culture, because you're literally sitting down and saying, well, I have this issue. I'm snacking on Cheerios even though I really don't mean to. So I'm willing to change that. You know, can you help me do that? You know, by reminding me when I do it.
So looking at culture as a set of routine, a set of practices, a set of rituals that you develop as a couple for the purpose of what? What's the end game with the culture?
The end game is that you create an environment for personal growth for each person involved or persons. I don't know, some people out there are polyamorous or polygamous, right? And you create it to have a long, happy, fruitful, I want to say engagement, but not in the term that we know it, like being engaged to someone. I think like engaging with one another for the lifetime of the relationship. You're engaging. You don't withdraw from each other. So you want to always create a space where you are helping one another. You are helping each other grow as a person, and you're growing the partnership as well. You
know, it's interesting. This reminds me of something, you know, that I've carried for a long time about if you go into, and it actually ties into what you were saying earlier about having a plan. If you have a plan, even if things don't work out, you know that part of the plan was that I was still going to get an experience out of it. So even if it didn't work out the way I wanted, I still got the experience. I haven't lost. I've actually gained. But I know a lot of people, when they come out of relationships, they feel as if they've, you know, something's been ruined, something's been taken away. They've actually gained, you know. And you know, that's something that I've, you know, in the last 10 years have really taken on board to realize that I don't actually waste my time with anybody. You know, there's always a lesson to learn, and I'm always grateful for the lesson. So, you know, that's part of the culture that I've taken from any relationship. I mean, to know that, yeah, no matter what happens, it can never be a bad thing. And, you know, that's definitely something I've been trying to get other people to look at also, because then I guess you can stop this kind of hate and blame game whenever a relationship breaks down. If it's broken down and you're both free to be yourselves, then lead in love and be happy. But I know a lot of people get, just get into this animosity, and it simply isn't worth it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that goes back to really knowing your purpose or purposes on the planet and getting into yourself, knowing what you're here for, and honoring that first above all else, unless, you put God first or whatever it is, how you worship.
Right.
But if you don't acknowledge yourself in this plan, in this scheme, and you tighten up your own space, anybody can come in and sweep you off your feet. But sometimes when they sweep you off your feet, they're going to drop you too. So,
and just to tag on to that, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. I've been in this situation plenty of times where you meet someone and you swap numbers and you call them, and they may not call you back straight away. They may call you back 3 days later, and all the while you're thinking, what the hell are they doing? Why are they calling me back? Are they having a laugh? They know, like, I took a day off work to stand by the phone to wait for you to pick up. And when they call you, they're just kind of like happy and chill. And you're there stuck in your feelings. And it's like, I don't understand it. Why is it we ain't spoken for 3 days? They're fine and I'm not. And I used to hate that feeling. Do other people go through that as well? Or is it just me?
No, it is not you. Don't even try to own that. Somebody that really turned you on, and you're like, hey, I'm excited. And then on the other side is this whole rejection piece going on. It's that mind that's getting you. And that's another discussion about your mindset and controlling your inner critic. But yes, people want to know what's going on. But then, when the person does call you back, do you ask them, well, why did you take so long to call me back? Or do you let it go?
What I found is that and it's like you said, when I started becoming more purposeful, I found that didn't happen anymore because I always had something to do with my life. So it was never an issue if they didn't call back for 3 or 4 days because I actually assumed they were just getting on with their purpose too, and they got their life. So
I love
it's
that.
much better now. But there's so much. There's so much, and I know like we got through like about half of these, and we have another 5 to go. You're gonna have to come back, right?
Yes, I would love to. Yes.
And not just that, because this I actually want this. This is like the 12 commandments of Sulonda, right? And everyone needs to have this. It's the way you've written it is very easy to understand. It's very straightforward, and it hits all the major points. I can't wait to share the rest of the points, but I do think this is something that everybody needs to have hanging on their wall. I mean, they literally have to remind themselves of this every time they leave the house, because sticking to these cardinal points will definitely give much needed guidance and to how we interact with others. So I think it's great what you've written, and I can't wait to go through that. And then even in the conversation, you said some other stuff that got me thinking about what is it when you get that connection with somebody else and you're thinking, wait a minute, do I know you? That's a whole nother kettle of fish, and I'd love to also have you back to discuss that, because I get asked about that all the time. I know other people experience it, and there really is something there that may seem a bit taboo for some people, talking about past lives or meeting somebody before, but there is something to that. Can be broken down very straightforward, and I know you have a lot of answers that we definitely would love to hear. So yeah, I don't know what you're doing for the next couple of Sundays, but you need to clear your program so that we can get the benefit of your thoughts.
I'm here. I would love to.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Sulonda, and I know, yes, definitely the next week we need to come back and finish the rest of these. But for this first half of this show, are there any final parting words or wisdom that you want to leave people with?
Yes, absolutely. I would say just take time out to figure out what you want if you don't already know. Look at if you're trying to find a partner, look at where you're looking. Pay attention to where you've been. And if it wasn't a good resource for you, change it up. Start working on being more confident in yourself, because that also exudes out too. And you attract people who kind of feel you're not as confident. And so you want somebody who's going to respect you for who you are and for what you want.
Amen. Amen to that. Words of wisdom from Sulonda Smith. And if anybody wants to get hold of you, if they can't wait till next week and they want to get the whole list from you, how can we get hold of you?
Okay, absolutely. Yes. Facebook is a great place right now, and you can actually find me at Sulonda Smith. That's SULONDASMITH. You can private message me. In there, you can like the page, of course, and then private message me. So that's Sulonda Smith. And I can tell you more about the distinctions or help you with that, or just to give you the printout of what I have available, in addition to some other things that I have going on as well.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking time out. Sulonda, I just really appreciate you coming, and definitely looking forward to doing this in 7 days' time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Speak to you soon.
All right, peace.
So, Source Nation, the 12 distinctions of a relationship are something that you can definitely do, as we've heard, on your own. As a single person, you will have the time to experience the shifts in personal development that is only possible when you're on your own. So it's a precious time that will require much of you, much thought. These distinctions weren't just, again, notes that you can scribble down. Okay, that sounds cute. There's a whole each one. And in order to dramatically transform your relationship patterns, you must be willing to see clearly how you yourself created the old patterns, as well as taking responsibility to ensure that new and better improved patterns show up in your dating or relationships. So becoming ready for authentic, happy, and healthy love. I mean, we know it isn't always easy, but it's always well worth the effort when you get to the other side. And like Sulonda was saying, while setting an intention to find love is a good thing, it really is just the beginning of the journey, because there's maintaining the love. There's adding value to it. There's being creative with it. That's so much that one also needs to prepare themselves for. And the only way you can really do that is being in love with yourself. And once you've mastered that experience within you, then it's so much easier to do that with someone else. So plenty of work to do, but you have the support system. Sulonda is there for you. So remember to check her out. We'll be putting her information on our Facebook page, on our web. So make sure you check her out. SULON for Norman, DA Smith. So you can go to her Facebook page and message her. Wonderful person to talk to. She has an open ear and an open heart. If you really need someone to talk to, I definitely would advise that you get in contact with her. So Source Nation, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. But before I leave, let me thank our sponsors one more time, and they are Scott Cares Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hits Masters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. Also, Source Nation, to contact me, you can reach myself, Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti, at Meet, MEET, meet@meetmytypes.com for any comments, questions, or ideas about the show. We want to hear from you. So once again, thank you so much, Source Nation. You have been listening to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with me, Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti. Have a great week. I'll see you all next Sunday. Love is all, and all is love. Peace.
We'll be back, Source Radio Network, after this commercial break.
This program is brought to you by Meet My Type Matchmaking. Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique. Renovations. And New Covenant of Praise Worship Center.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Good evening, Source Nation. I am your host, Tem'Ti Sahu, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Renaissance Relationship Therapy, the show that gives you the relationship view you never knew, and it's a view that has the power to change everything. Now, Source Nation, today we're going to be continuing a discussion that we started on our last show about what it really takes to achieve that perfect, or more importantly, that correct relationship. You know, there's a lot of tips and blogs on this stuff on the internet, but you haven't heard anything quite the way we discussed it on the last show. And of course, we're talking about Sulonda Smith's 12 distinctions of a relationship. Essentially overhauled all the rules and conventional wisdom on how to achieve that correct relationship for yourself. And she created 12 distinctions, guidelines that were simple to follow, practical, and effective to do on more than one level. They were essential to your growth and your understanding of relationships. So definitely not your run-of-the-mill information. Of course, there's going to be some things that you're going to be familiar with, but the way these are written, they will affect you mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. As I said, there are 12 distinctions on Sulonda's list. We covered 7 in the last show, and the remaining 5 we're about to do right now. And I'm going to recap the first 7 in a moment, just in case you didn't catch the first show. But just to let you know, Sulonda Smith, she is a practicing marriage and family therapist, psychotherapist, and counselor. She's been a therapist for over 17 years, like probably over 20. And her specialty is actually working with individuals who have compulsive, addictive behaviors with sex, love, and food, as well as providing services for issues such as depression, relationship challenges, family conflicts, and grief. So her 12 distinctions of a relationship are like the heart and soul of what we do on this show. The list is deep, but it's profound and honest, and it will work for you if you have the patience, not to just write them down, but to act on them. So Sulonda will be here very shortly to make it all very plain for us. But before I go any further, let me thank our sponsors who have made all this possible. Scott Cares Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Photography, Hits Masters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. Also, Source Nation, remember to tune in every other Monday for Love Zone Mondays with Kathy B and her co-host Dr. D. Yvonne Young as they speak with us about applying principles to strengthen and restore our relationships as we strive for longevity and success. Very important show. So, as I stated earlier, our special guest for tonight's conversation is Sulonda Smith, and we're going to be discussing the 12 distinctions of a relationship. And just to cover the first 7, the first was, who am I? That's how a person has to know him or herself, their liabilities and their assets. In order to create an authentic, happy, and supportive relationship, you need to know who you are in order to know what you have to give and what you need to receive. Number 2, control your emotions, not just the old emotions, but the new ones. So you got to understand all your non-productive, non-beneficial behaviors, be accountable for them, and change those emotions into new emotions, the ones that can avoid you suffering, the ones that can avoid you making excuses for accepting abuse. You know, these are things that, again, one of Sulonda's expertise is actually helping people work through this and getting in touch with their old emotions patterns are. So very important, controlling your emotions. Number 3, know your intention. You got to know how you want your relationship to be. You have to have a plan for the type of relationship you want, and then believe, or even better, know that you have what you need. You have the tools to create that experience. And also to be realistic about the commitment that's going to take. Otherwise, you'll want you want gold, but only do enough for plastic. It's not going to work out. So you've got to know your intentions and live up to it. Attract and detract. That's number 4, the science of flirting. You got to know how you're going to put your vibe out. You know, you got to know how you're going to attract someone into your life and the kind of messages that you give out. You know, how you dress, how you talk can affect how the types of person that you pull into your life. So that's very important. Number 5, being honest. You got to be clear about what you want and say what you want and not think that everyone's going to be a mind reader. So that's, you know, a very important thing to do. If you are lonely or you're secure and you know that's your reality, and maybe you don't need to go out, you know, at that moment and figure out, okay, how do I get over my insecurities? Because if I go out there and I talk about that, someone's going to be like, nope, red flag. So be honest with yourself. Sometimes you're not ready for a relationship. So very important thing, you know, it's not just honesty for other people, but honesty for yourself. Ask questions, number 6. I mean, you know, Sulonda's advice, have your questions ready, you know, and have them ready and ask these questions over the next 3 to 5 dates. And she said it's not all about just, you know, giving somebody a questionnaire or like you're interviewing them, but it's all in the tone. If you ask things a certain way, you'll get answers. People will open up and want to talk. But if you're like, when did you do this? When did you go to school? What does your mom do for a living? Well, they're going to get up. I probably would too. So asking questions is very important, but also the tone in which you ask them can create such a relaxed atmosphere where people will literally just, you know, be vomiting information all over you, and you'll know exactly who you're dealing with. And number 7, becoming a couple, relationship culture. You know, being in a relationship, you know, it can be tricky. If you've been living on your own for the past 7 years and then now you're in a relationship, there's a whole bunch of sharing and compromising that might have to happen. It's not a bad thing, but if you're not prepared to understand compromise or sharing, then, you know, you can really kind of start guarding your territory and become closed off. So you have to understand what comes with a new relationship culture and also the benefits so that you know what it's worth, why you're changing, and why it's worth the little sacrifices. For what you're getting out of it, those sacrifices of, you know, well, maybe I don't sleep on that side of the bed. I don't mind if they sleep on that side of the bed, because if they sleep on that side and they're still the nice person that I can wake up to in the morning, then I'm better off. So these are things that she went into in great detail. So I do urge you to go and listen to the first show or contact her when she gives you her contact details and get the full list and the breakdown from her. But we have another 5 to go, so definitely tune in for that. They're coming up right now. So call in, Source Nation, 619-924-0933. Press option 1 if you want to get involved in the conversation, you have a question, or you'd like to make a comment. We're going to take a quick break. After the break, we'll be back with our special guest, Sulonda Smith. She'll be in the studio with us to discuss the 12 distinctions of a relationship.
Stay tuned, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Are you burdened with unsatisfying emotional, spiritual, or mental relationships? Where and how do you start to fix everything? Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is the relationship you never knew. Join Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti every Sunday with special guests, including you, that will inspire, enlighten, change, and even surprise you on what you thought about your relationship. If you're ready to go there, then Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is already waiting. Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti is the relationship you never knew, and the one that is going to change everything.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti.
Source Nation, welcome back to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with me, your host, Life Purpose Coach Tem'Ti. And as I stated earlier, my special guest tonight is Sulonda Smith. She's in the studio with us to discuss the 12 distinctions of a relationship, part 2. She's here. She's ready to go. So am I. Source Nation, here's Sulonda Smith. How you doing, Sulonda?
I'm wonderful, Tem'Ti. How are you today?
I am doing fine, thanks. Really looking forward to doing part 2. And even when I was talking earlier and going through the first 7, I was like, this is an amazing list. Like, I don't know how you did. I mean, the information is like, it's just everything. You know, like people want, like, I just want to know everything about relationships and, you know, give me the ABCs. And you've really done a fantastic job. And it's just like, I can't wait for everyone else to hear the remaining 5. It's so needed and just excellent work.
Oh, thank you for that.
Well, I'm just like, yes, let's get started. But real quick, again, for everyone else who hasn't had the pleasure of listening to you, let them know who you are and why you do what you do.
Absolutely. I am a psychotherapist. I have been for 20 years. So these days it kind of comes easy to putting together like that 12 distinctions of relationship because I've seen it in so many different forms, what works and what doesn't work. You know, I work with couples and also individuals. And I'm currently a dating and relationship coach for men and women. And I'm actually putting together a coaching program for women because I am finding a lot of women, usually about 35 to 40, who's having a tough time because they aren't able to find partners. We can talk about the numbers another time, but, you know, they want children, they want a man, and then also being okay living single, you know, what that means, and it's not a curse, you know, it's something that can be embraced to really look at what you have as far as your gifts, your talents, and get into yourself. So I'm working with that energy in addition to helping people do relationships differently to get the most out of them. So that's where my magic comes in at, and that's what makes me happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and then, you know, when you're happy, you can help the rest of us get happy. So that's a good trade-off. So picking up from where we left off last week, number 8, developing true intimacy, and you speak about voluntary vulnerability. You say creating trust and a bond is an art form. The authentic experience is not being afraid to share your deepest secrets. It's natural to keep a few secrets to yourself, as you also have a good relationship with you. But allowing someone to be in your most gentlest parts is a sacred act. Tell us more about this.
Absolutely. So voluntary vulnerability is when you choose to show up in a relationship with someone and you want them to nurture you. You want them to support you, to maybe even guide you in some instances. Some people have a tough time letting others in, maybe because they've been hurt in the past, or maybe they weren't shown that, so it wasn't demonstrated with their caregiver, so they don't know what that looks like. But if you choose to be in relationship with someone, being vulnerable is that part to navigate if you truly want a loving, happy, harmonious relationship. You can't get around that. When you aren't voluntarily vulnerable, you create blocks with your partner. And then I see people can't really put their finger on why they're disconnected, and it's because both are holding out. And when I say voluntarily being vulnerable, that means that no matter what happens, that whatever your partner does, and you're affected by it, and you're having an emotional experience with it, you're still responsible for what you do with those emotions. You know, it's no spewing them over your partner or fussing, yelling, cursing, whatever you do. It's you showing up and say, okay, I'm choosing to be in a relationship with you. That means that I'm getting my own emotions in check and that I'm aware that there might be some things that pop up that may hurt me just as well as excite me, but I'm still responsible for what I do with that reaction. It's a different way of being vulnerable instead of thinking you're being taken advantage of. It's you offering yourself to someone.
So how much courage is involved in this? Because, you know, you may not hit the lottery every time and, you know, the first person you come across, it's them. You know, you may kiss a few frogs on the way and make yourself vulnerable to them. And then, you know, they can get walked over, taken advantage of, or they may just not respond, and that can still hurt. So realistically, how much courage do you really need to have to be vulnerable going into a relationship?
I would say, this might sound a little awkward, I would say a little courage, but more self-awareness.
Okay.
Because courage is, when you are jumping into something, and it's, you don't know what it is and you're not sure about it. But see here, if you've done the previous steps, you know what you're getting into. You have more control over that. But when you're self-aware, you know where your gentle places are. You know what gets you going and turns you on. But really, it's up to that person to be responsible for him or herself. And that's what I mean by having a relationship with yourself and then redoing how we do relationships. We walk around with expectations. I particularly, and I'm not saying everyone else should do this, of course. I respect everybody's thinking processes. But I don't use the word expectation often because it's often linked to feelings. And when we have an expectation of how someone should treat us or act, and then they don't do it, we're disappointed, and then we shut down, we retaliate, we withhold, we withdraw, and then that creates a whole other layer of conflict in the relationship. When you have goals of reaching something, those are changeable. You can work with those. They're usually not associated with emotions as much as expectation. So it's really important to be clear with who you are, what you bring to the table, and to strengthen that emotional space that you have in yourself.
And again, with the vulnerability, is that something that you release, like you said, letting somebody into your gentlest places? Is that something that you do over a period of time? Is it something that you just do? Okay, I'm this, and I feel like crying right now, and I'm telling you everything. Do you spew all out, or do you find a natural rhythm? Do you feel somebody out and let it open yourself up over a period of time? What's the best way to go about it?
Well, I love what you said, Tem'Ti, is that you find a natural rhythm. You find a natural rhythm within yourself first, and then when you allow somebody in that space, when it is opening up, you're still clear about who you are and how much you want to show someone. You might have somebody who doesn't do well with receiving someone, letting all their emotions out. You might have to find a friend to do that with. And that's another thing about relationships. We can't show all of ourselves to our partner only because of the wiring, the hormones, the biology, the physiology. There's just certain places we can't support each other. Like if we were still living mostly in tribal ways, and if you visited a tribe who's still practicing, their ancient arts, typically the women hang out with the women all day, unless it's time to make love or have a ceremony of some sort, or they need to have a community meeting. But the women hang out with the women because they support each other, they get each other, they can flow. And the men hang out with the men doing their thing. Yeah. But now we're here in this relationship and we're with each other 24 hours a day, and our build is just not supportive that way. So one thing I think is really, truly important is being okay that your partner cannot support you 100%. And being okay with that. That's completely okay.
That's a very, very good point. Because that's what a lot of people expect. And there we go with the expectation, the emotional attachment that he should be doing this for me, or she should be doing this and be here for me. And it's really, on a biological level, it's not quite natural. It's not quite natural to do that. Just like it's not really natural, like you said, to kind of live with somebody and spend 24/7 with them or all your spare time with them. And because that's the way we live right now in these little nuclear blocks. And creates a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation on somebody. Don't get the best, you don't get the best out of them, But very, very important point you just made. And this kind of brings us into number 9, the commitment reality. This one, people are going to be familiar when the real you shows up. You know, characteristics and behaviors that you never saw before, now they are here. And then you ask yourself, what the heck have I got myself into? Tell us about this commitment reality and what we should really be, you know, what it really looks like, what it really should look like.
It should look like you knowing you the best you can at that moment, because we are all works of art like clay. We will be remolded over and over again as long as we're on the planet. Mm-hmm. And being willing to not in one pattern. Change is the one constant thing we can rely on while we're here on the planet.
Right.
And if you become okay with change, it's better for you in the long run in your relationships, because if you find yourself somewhere that you really don't want to be, but you're afraid to own up to it because maybe you're thinking you're a failure because here's another relationship ending, which many of us think. So we try to stick it out and prove something to ourselves, and maybe those in our realm, so to speak, family, friends, that really want us to have someone, we feel the pressure. So we say the reality check is saying, no, these aspects that's showing up or what this person is doing is not something that I want to deal with for either the rest of my life or in a long-term relationship. And being willing to consciously uncouple. I know that's a term that's been floating around, is to, when we separate, is to do it consciously, right? There's a conscious uncoupling, which means you're leaving without any hard feelings left over, feeling shame, guilt, disrespected or rejected. That doesn't have to be, and that's where I want to really teach people how to do your relationships in a way it doesn't have to feel so arduous or leave you feeling ineffective or not enough. So if you see someone exhibiting a behavior that really concerns you and you've talked with that person about it, and they're open to the conversation. Now, it doesn't always happen quickly. You know, I've seen where couples stay in a relationship for years, even before the partner's ready to talk about his or her alcoholism.
Right.
Right, or any other aspects that's happening. The universe always provides. That's what I've learned, and that's what I've always seen. Or if you want to say God or higher power or whatever you want to call it, when you really put your mind to wanting something, and it's not done in a way that you have that doubt looming in the back saying, I want this, but I know I can't have it. I really want this, but I know I can't have it. Well, you probably won't get it. But if you can think of something that you wanted so much, maybe as a child, that you knew without a shadow of a doubt you would have it, right? There was no doubt. You received that. It's the same thing with anything else in our lives, including relationships. It's okay to let go. It's okay to say this isn't working. But it should also be okay that you're ready to do some work. So if you're showing up in a relationship, be ready to do some work. This is not Cinderella. This is not Snow White. This is not any other fairy tale that we've seen when we grew up and even today. This is really about doing some work to create something, which we'll talk about, later on in the distinctions. Is creating a partnership with someone to be with you while you are experiencing yourself and this planet.
It almost seems as if a lot of the work is actually dealing with the preconception, the conditioning that we've had on what we think relationships should be like. And, a lot of that work, it seems as if we're fighting, especially, even with me, the things that I've gone through in relationships has been like challenging, like, well, she's supposed to be doing this, she should be doing that, and realizing that the reality is not like that, and just trying to kind of shift my way of thinking. It wasn't easy. It definitely, wasn't easy in the past. So I definitely understand. Yes, we all have, like you said, this Walt Disney idea of what a relationship should look like. We want to commit to that, but when we see a real person with things aren't, like you said, if they don't support you 100%, it's not a problem. And a lot of us have to get past that. That's great advice. And then we move into number 10, the power struggle. You talk about fear, arises when and needs not being met. Who's in charge? The question will arise when a person feels like they might lose out. If you feel like you have to dominate the relationship in order for you to feel good, then there will be discord, and the person will feel unheard, and you yourself maybe even become vulnerable to someone who could hurt you deeply. So all of this as part of the power struggle. So how much of that have you seen in people? I mean, is this something that we are aware of when we're doing it, or we're totally unaware?
Most of the time, I would say we're unaware because we're predisposed. Because of the examples we were shown from my caregivers, when we were in our young developmental years, that's what we act out, play out. In addition to that, if we gotten our heart broken at a very early age by someone, that also adds to the difficulty. And then it becomes, well, I'm not letting anyone get over on me again. Nope, never. And then this wall comes up, and then they get into a relationship, and they're more focused on how that person can hurt them than help them. Right.
And I think that really plays into, because they're all interconnected, so it absolutely plays into the vulnerability, right? With the wall, you shut things out, and yet you don't let anything in. So I don't know, for people who do this and go through these power struggles, I mean, it's not a walk in the park for them either. They're kind of suffering in a kind of way when they do that, right?
Yes.
It's really in power struggles these days. Is it something that it affects men more, it affects women more, or men exhibit power in different ways than women? What's the deal with that?
Great question and great statement. I see it both because each has what they consider something to lose. And for men, the number one thing for men in a relationship is respect. He wants to be respected. And many people say, well, you have to earn respect, right? We always hear that.
Right.
But even saying something like that means that you're feeling like you have to protect something within yourself, that you don't want to give something away. You don't want to be vulnerable in a way that you think you don't have any choice or power. A man will typically offer you what he has. When he speaks, usually a man says, particularly when he's talking to a woman of interest, he's very specific about what he says. And what he says is usually what he can offer and what he can't. Women have to learn how to listen to that and take that for face value instead of internalizing and say, oh, well, no, we'll fix that. I'll do this and I'll do that, or he really meant this or that. And he's presenting himself to a woman in that way. So he's open. When she starts to judge or reject, then he starts to say, oh, something's changed and I have to protect myself. So then this power struggle comes in where he wants to protect what he said he would offer and provide, which she might have missed, right? She may not have gotten that. And then within that, when she hears that, when she knows how to listen or what to listen for, she can make a conscious choice then and there if that's a good choice for her, instead of letting it go on and then sitting in the relationship upset, angry, or bitter because it isn't working out the way she wanted. For women, a lot of women wear independent competition badges because both men and women have had their own struggles. Rather we talk about just the gender, the race, whatever, et cetera, she is probably already on guard. And if she is feeling like she won't be able to be herself in the relationship, or either he's not going to step up or be in a way she would like him to be, which he should do a good job of presenting himself to her so that they both can look at each other with straight eyes and mind in the beginning, then she's going to be disappointed if he doesn't show up in a certain way. And then a power ensues because she's thinking, oh, well, I'm going to have to protect mine or protect me now. I'm not, right? That becomes that song, right?
Right.
you said it earlier, is that it can be devastating for people to walk around in this mindset of feeling like they have to protect themselves and they have to struggle for a power. And really, that power that they're struggling for is a space of acceptance, conditional love. But it's unconditional love really isn't something talked about.
Right. And that is a whole nother story, because I know me and you have spoken about love being a choice and not something that just happens. But talking about, in terms of the power struggle and wanting to be accepted, wanting to feel, well, the word I want to bring up is value. Because, right now, based upon the media, if you came from another planet, you'd think the only thing that was valuable for a guy is having a six-pack and a job. And for a woman, having a big booty, and I don't know what else men are looking for. But I'm just talking about, from what you see on TV, it's like these very shallow definitions, and the people that have achieved these, they walk around literally with a sense of like, man, they're all looking at me, they need me, they want me, and they really feel this way. When there are so many things to value about a person. And it kind of goes back to this thing, well, if you're a guy, you've got to have muscles and be 6 foot. And if you're a woman, you've got to be curvy and know how to cook. But there's value in so many different ways. I mean, back in the day, if you had to build a house out of your hands with your own 2 hands, then maybe being a muscle guy with a 6-pack was worth something. But these days, nobody builds their own house anymore. And you don't need muscles to mow the lawn. So I think people need to really readdress what they feel is valuable. A lot of people are want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to stay in their jobs for 40 years. It may be valuable to find somebody that you could work with or somebody that brings value to either supporting your dreams of being an entrepreneur or they can actually work with you. Are there any examples that you've had to, that you've seen of people, underestimating each other's value, or even examples where people have realized that this person actually has a value in a way I never expected that would bring something to my life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it happens so subtly. What happens, though, is there's an internalization that happens, and it's processed inward first, and then all of these thoughts and behaviors, are formed around it, and then there's the action that comes out. But all of that is because of our own perception, our own understanding about something, which there could be many, but usually we only entertain one. So learning how to ask questions, learning how to be vulnerable is really helpful in the beginning. The value that someone may place on themselves and the other person is sometimes undervalued. I know I said value for undervalued, right? But what I mean by that is, okay. And what I mean is, everybody has value, period. Everybody has value. I think what we get hung up on is, how can this person help me? What can this person do for me? And when we get those little surprises that you talked about, we say, oh, wow, this person is great at planning surprise vacation trips, or they're just so thoughtful with putting gatherings together. Wow, they really love elders and really like to take care of them. Those things are wonderful surprises, and they're extra. But when you meet someone, you look into their eyes and you say, I value you simply because you're a human being having an experience on the planet, and I know that you have a lot to offer in your own way, in your own right. And then as you get to know the person, it becomes, oh, I see what you have to offer, but that doesn't match with me. You hear the difference? Yeah. You just value somebody simply because they're a human being and that you're having an experience with them and they're showing up for you. And then you ask yourself, well, the values that this person has, because there's being of value, and then there's some values that you have that you can share with someone that we're talking about.
in order to appreciate someone's value, I guess you have to appreciate your own value too, to even know. It just seems that there's going to be a correlation there. To really know what someone has to offer, you almost have to value what you have. Otherwise, you can, I guess, overvalue somebody and run the risk of being abused or taken advantage of, right?
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes. And I think I might have given this example last time. I'm uncertain if I did. Forgive me, but I'm going to say it again. Mm-hmm. Is that when you are loving someone, or I'll use the example of loving someone, or just being present with someone, there's two extremes. You can love too much and lose yourself, or you can love too little and lose the person. But if you love in the middle, loving you, knowing your value, knowing what you have to offer, not taking any mess off of anybody, creating healthy boundaries for yourself, and then also understanding that that person is going through their own experiences and journeys, which most of the time has nothing to do with you, but because you're emotionally attached, you feel like it has to do with you, then you're not in the neutral zone. You're either on one of the ends of the spectrum. So the goal is to be in the middle.
Okay, and achieving that middle, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, right? In terms of, and I guess this is something that you do with your, and I'm saying this for the benefit of anyone listening because, you know, it sounds simple enough, you know, loving in the middle, but it sounds like there's quite a few things attached to that statement in terms of what somebody might have to do to actually find their middle, especially when life is pulling you in like 15 different directions. I might come back to that at the end. Number 11, and it's crazy, you know, each one of these points that you make here, you could write a book on them. You could literally write a book on every single one. It's just so much depth in here. But you talk about creating a partnership, working the business plan. Sharing your life is the goal here. Sharing your life is the goal here. Being willing to give and receive cultivates balance in a relationship. Designing actions and behaviors in the relationship can decrease disagreement and improve productivity, just like a business plan. So, are you saying that we now need to break out the pen and paper and actually start writing stuff down? I mean, is it that deep? I mean, do we have to look at this literally as we got to write stuff down, or is it something that just happens between two people because they got it like that?
Oh, my goodness. No, it does not just happen like that.
Okay.
I mean, I've met couples where they just were so wonderfully complimentary for each other. They didn't have to do much work with it, you know? Okay. But most people I see, yes, get the paper and the pencil. You know, that's so unromantic. When you say... I do, rather you using a marriage certificate or getting a license, or I do, you know, I'm your partner, you know, for as long as we can go or for life, you are entering into a different institution now. You are now making money and spending it together. You're buying material items and selling them together. You're now bringing two other families together, and you have to manage that. You're producing children together if that's your choice. How are you going to raise them? How are you going to train them? Right? What are we going to eat? How are we going to eat? You know, how are we going to sleep? So all of this is a plan. It literally becomes a business plan. You still have the romance. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of my couples say that they have to plan for the romance, especially when they start introducing children into the mix. But there's nothing wrong with that. I had one couple, they had such busy schedules, and when I told them they had to schedule sex, they nearly fell off the couch.
I bet. Wow.
Because they had expectations. He was like, when I come home at night, you know, it's on. And she's like, no, I've had a hard day giving out mental, you know, I'm exhausted. Leave me alone. You know, in the morning, he's like, no, I want to sleep in. So we have to, sometimes we really do have to schedule these things in order to be with one another. And I think it's that small space that if people could think of their relationship in that way, it might cause a lot of disagreements. It might melt a lot of disagreements. Here again, we're going back to goals with each other, not having expectations of how you think your partner is supposed to show up. And it's hard, I know, but it's doable.
Is it doable because it's necessary because of the way we live? Because, okay, so you spoke about creating a plan. And like you said, all right, we go to schedule sex Mondays and Tuesdays before 7 p.m. and whatever. It can sound ridiculous, but it may be something that's necessary. Is it normal to do that?
No. Some couples come to it on their own, and they realize that has to be done, and some couples struggle with it. They don't want that part of their lives to be managed like, their job. So it's an art form, really, of creating this life with one another. There's just so many small spokes in the wheel. The maintenance and awareness.
And I think a big part of it is that, no matter what you do, if you're doing it with somebody that you actually really care for and like, I guess you can turn anything into a fun new experience. So just like they say, it's not what you do, it's who you do it with. And if it means writing out a sex schedule, well, just with the right person, it could be just another thing that brings you guys closer together. So absolutely. Which brings us to number 12, mutual interdependence, respect for each other's life path and giving and receiving of support. And, it's a great one to have for the last distinction, because that's really kind of full circle and brings you round to understanding the why you're with this person. They're supposed to be bringing something to your life path, or the experience of being with that person is supposed to help you. Whether they realize they're doing it or not, or whether it's intentional or not, they're supposed to bring some value, some to your life path that helps you feel. Do a lot of the people you speak to, are they aware of what the point of their relationship is and what it has to do with their life path? Or do you think most people don't care about this stuff and just think, they just simply don't care about it? What's your experience with it?
I think they definitely do care. I think what happens is that they don't know how to care. And I keep going back to our caregiver experiences and examples and learning behaviors, that if we didn't have a good example of how to be in a relationship, then it can really be difficult and feel like a rough ride when we're trying to create something that we don't have the insight to create in a way that will be healthy, loving, harmonious, and fun and exciting. We don't use those words as often as we should when it comes to relationships. And to continuously use them throughout the relationship, whether you're talking about 27 years you've been together or 40. And again, it's this work of art. Being in a mutual interdependent relationship is recognizing that you're with another person that you do not own, you do not possess, you do not control. You are showing up and agreeing to have an experience with each other while you're here. And whatever shows up for that person, you're supporting them as they go through it. It shouldn't automatically be a judgment on how you're going to have to show up and go through it. That's what people often do, is when their partners are going through something, they immediately say, oh, how's this going to affect me, and what adjustments would I have to make? And that's okay, but first just acknowledge that it's your partner's journey that they're going through. Ask them how you can support him or her, and then go to yourself and say, is this something that I can do? How can I do this? How can I support them? Or is this something that I just can't do, and it's going to take a lot out of me? And then make a decision if you want to stay or go. I'm of the philosophy that if you've really worked at something and you've tried to honestly make it work, and which means you willingly looked at yourself and all of your stuff to see what might be the cause of you not having harmony in your relationship, and not just giving up because often people do. They give up so quickly. They don't want to do work on themselves, the other person that has the problem. So if you're willing to do that and keep it separate but have compassion for your partner when they're going through their issues, you can have a beautiful long-term relationship. It's not all about you. You know, that was one of the issues that I had in my life early on, was that I couldn't recognize that it wasn't all about me in the relationship. I was so caught up on if I was going to be hurt or if I was going to be used or taken for granted that I had forgotten that I was with another person who was going through his issues as well. Right, and so a lot of these things also aren't just from me working with my clients, but it's also my own junk that I had and that I had to get through and learn to love myself and become aware, allow somebody in my vulnerable, sacred places, and recognize when my stuff was coming up. That's how you walk with somebody on their own path.
So then going back to understanding the whole thing about a path, you know, me and you have spoken, and, you know, we have an understanding of a path, you know, being something from the mundane to the spiritual, you know, to something that's like, you know, your destiny, what you're going to become. Of course, not every couple may think like that or may care about that. But how important is it that they educate themselves on the more spiritual aspects when it comes to a relationship and their path? I mean, because we talk about goals and supporting your goals, you know, and sometimes I think, okay, if my goal is to support you, if your goal is to become, I don't know, an astronaut, and I'm here to support you in that, and you become an astronaut, you've achieved your goal. What's next after that? Do you see what I'm saying? And sometimes, you know, a relationship can reach a dead end. You know, a perfect example is like children. My goal is to have children, and once I got them, okay, why are you here now? I already got the kids. You know, so is it important? So when I think of spiritual goals, I think of something that's like ongoing. There's a reason to be with this person between now and forever and beyond, you know, essentially long term. How important is that to have these type of goals that go into the spiritual? Do they ensure that you have a more fulfilling longer term relationship, or does it make a difference? Does it not make a difference?
How I see spirituality is that it's everywhere. It's everything. It's how we interact and relate to everything. When we take a microscope and we magnify something that we want to have a deeper understanding in, that too is a spiritual experience. So it's like we have all of these opportunities to support us around us, but we don't always recognize it, that it's there for us. When we want to become more mindful about what is available for us to help us strengthen our relationships with ourselves and with our loved ones, then we're stepping up. If you want to get into more spiritual principles, right, where we're actually talking about how you do something, and then there's a delineation from just observing it and then doing it, then I think that's what we're talking about here. When we are in this state of flux and we can't decide like what it is that we're doing or what we're supposed to be doing, or should we stay in this relationship or should we end it, we are not in tune with ourselves. We're denying that which is usually very clear that comes up. I always say that when you are trying to listen to inner guidance, is that if it comes in a loud voice, that's not working for you. That's your critic. That's the judgment. But when it comes in a whisper, and it's barely noticeable, but you're aware that you've just been shared something to do or how do you relate to something, that's your reliable intuition, the one to listen to. But because we're not used to that type of spiritual work or experience, then we discount and make a lot of mistakes that are not in alignment with who and what we truly are while we're here.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. And of course, this is part of what the work that you do, working with others, supporting them in some of these in some of these more deeper aims and purposes that they have for themselves. If anyone listening to the show now wants to get hold of you, because, like you said, and I said it at the beginning, this isn't just a list that you write down. This is something that people can meditate on. It is something that, they need to, really think about putting into practice. So naturally, you being the author, you're the best person to break it down for anyone. If anybody wants to get hold of you, Sulonda, what is the best way they can reach you?
Well, they can actually just shoot me an email. And I am actually revamping my site, SulondaSmith.com, which will be relaunched September 1. But the email is still available, and that is Sulonda, S as in Sam, ULONDA at SulondaSmith.com. So that's SulondaSmith.
Perfect.
And I can go over whatever, yeah.
Okay, that will work for that. And just, is there anything you have coming up? Any other things significant that you have coming up in the next few months that we need to be looking out for?
Yes, I have some juicy things happening. In the beginning, I talked briefly about a dating and relationship group for women. And it's a mastermind group. And it's where we talk about dating, where to find dates, how to find people appropriate for you. We look at what you're doing that you feel like is repelling men, right? How do you attract men? How do you be okay being single? What do you do with that? How do you deal with the fact that some men are not interested in relationship and some men are, and where are they? So I also do hot seat coaching on those calls, and it's priced great, so that everybody can get in and get what they need in a way that you feel like, hey, I'm getting something from this. And so I'm really excited about that. It's my pilot. I'm starting it. And so even though, therapy and coaching is very different, because I have a therapy background, I'm able to listen for things that may not always be caught right away as to what problems may be. As therapy deals with problems, coaching deals with goals. I also have a workshop coming up called Sacred, Sexy, and Satisfied, Getting Your Love, Money, and Health in Order. And that is a 2-day workshop for women. We have a panel of men that will be there to answer women's questions. All of them, wow. All the juicy questions. So that is the highlight of our workshop. That's happening September 17th and 18th. It's fun. We laugh. We talk about everything under the sun that has to do with women. So I'm really excited about these two things. And as well, I do one-on-one coaching as well. But those are the two things that I'm really gearing up for.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, definitely a lot to look forward to. So, yes, everyone, I think, listening, if you've been inspired by what you've heard today, you definitely need to catch up with Sulonda, especially if you have access to the Atlanta area for these workshops. Sounds like fun. Might even go myself. I mean, can't a couple of guys show up? We need help too,
Yes. I am putting something together for men, too. I do have a workshop. We haven't gotten a date yet called Scoring Point, where we help men understand women and what to do with them.
Yes. Please,
helping you feel good about who you are. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Sulonda, and so glad we were able to get this out of the way. And again, a lot of great information about the stuff that you're doing and the support that you're giving out here for the rest of us. So yeah, and of course we're going to want you back on the show because you said a couple of things already that I'm like, we need to talk about that, So absolutely, in the next few months, it'd be great to have you back again and just catch up and see how everything's been going.
Yay, I would love it.
Perfect,
yes,
perfect.
Thank you
so much to you, and we shall definitely talk again soon, okay?
All right. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye.
So, Source Nation, it's correct versus perfect. We can always talk about wanting the perfect relationship. And a lot of the times we can, have this Disney ideal in our head that this perfect relationship is one where nothing goes wrong and everything is fine. They never have bad breath. They never leave the toilet seat up, but that's just not real. Real people do real things if you want a real relationship. And what we should be looking for is the correct relationship. The correct relationship, which means it's something that's good for us. It may not be good for anybody else, but it's good for us. And when you think about being correct, you think about making adjustments, understanding yourself to make adjustments to accept the right things in your life, making adjustments so that you can act in a way that helps you achieve the things you want to achieve. Source Nation, again, let me just really quickly run over our sponsors before I sign off. They are Scott Care Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hits Masters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. Also, Source Nation, to contact me, Life Purpose T, that rhymes, you can reach me at meetmytypes.com for any comments, questions, or ideas about the show that you want us to talk about. I and we want to hear from you. So you've been listening to Renaissance Relationship Therapy, and an amazing show. Take care of each other, and we shall see again next week. Peace.
Yeah, me for beat, yo.